It's Roll, right?
Roll?
I don't know if he's gonna be a good coach or not, but if this dude, his neck was thicker than his ears when he played.
He's fullback, man.
That's right.
Okay. We're recording, I think.
We are live.
All right, everybody. Welcome into Kickin' It. I hope you got that. Talking about neck thickness in coaches.
Thick neck.
Kickin' It is brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing. Kelderman, normal size neck. Jeff Kelderman, normal size neck. So you wouldn't be. It's not like saying he's a pencil neck, but he has a normal human being sized proportions. So he's a nice guy. Normal proportions.
Strong hands.
Works in manufacturing. Better have strong hands. Anyway, we're going to start. We got a couple things that we're going to get through. We are recording this on the nicest day of the year so far.
Flannel season's dead, baby.
Flannel season's dead for 30 hours. And then it's going to be 13 degrees again. So we are going to recording this on the really nice day. It is after the Saturday game. It's going to be released before the Wednesday Oklahoma game and also the women's game. I believe they host Cincinnati, or they host Cincinnati on Wednesday night. So before all those games, so Williams and Bloom are going to talk a lot about basketball. We're going to get the first part of the show kicked off, pun intended, with the Iowa State football coaching hires. So I think there's a lot to go over because it's sort of confusing what all the titles and stuff are. I also was working all day yesterday. I was dadding all day today. So from an in-depth standpoint, you guys are much more kind of locked into this than I am. So explain to someone who missed it, if they're not on social media or didn't really check, what coaching moves happened in the wake of Nate Schulhaus going to get his NFL head coach training under Sean McVay.
Yeah. So, kind of like what we talked about last time, though, we thought it would maybe stay in-house or stay close to
we thought Clinton.
Vest chest. Yes. We thought
the vest chest, the chest vest.
Yes.
The chest vest, right on the breast.
Breast. So Williams had, he had kind of not all his eggs in the Mauser basket, but he had said that, Mauser's kind of the next thought of in the same light as Schulhaus.
And Taylor Mauser coaches tight ends, which arguably the best position group that Iowa State's had over the last
most consistent for sure.
How is this year 9? Year 9 for Campbell over the last 8 years? Because I don't know how long's Mauser been here the whole time. So he's been the tight ends coach the whole time, right?
And he's found. He's the one that found Brock Purdy. He's the one that found Brees Hall. He's found some of the top recruits for Iowa State. So he's been a dude. It's not like it's like, oh, it's a tight ends coach. Why is that guy getting brought up there?
So he started as a GA, Campbell's first year. And then, so it was 2016. And he was also a GA at Toledo in 2015. And then 2017-18, he was assistant director of scouting. So that's when you talk about like he was the guy who found the guys, 1920, senior quality control / offense. And 21-22, he was the tight ends coach. 2023 to now, tight end / assistant head coach. And now, obviously, offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and so assistant head coach is a pretty big, I guess that got overlooked for me when we were talking about who could potentially be the next OC. Because
Tyson Veit was that before. So Tyson Veit left. And I think like the assistant head coach, to me, that feels like the person who has the most administrative capacity beyond Campbell. So we talked last week about like what does a head coach and a coordinator do, which is why it's so hard. You don't want to bring somebody from the outside to be your coordinator because of all the stuff that goes into the logistics, and why Campbell wouldn't likely be the coordinator. Well, if the associate head coach is probably going to be that person who's like, hey, we need to make sure that we get better motivation in our freshman class when they're in the weight room. You can go work with the strength coach and let's make sure that we get this thing, that we know what we're doing, and here's how we're going to develop camaraderie and stuff like that. All those things need to get set and directionally moved by the head coach. The associate head coach is the one that's going to take some of those tasks off the plate of the head coach. That was Tyson Veit. Tyson Veit leaves to go be the DC at, I forget, Cincinnati. And he is now, they need a new associate head coach. In steps Taylor Mauser.
Yep. So Mauser will still coach tight ends, but he will be the offensive coordinator for the Iowa State Cyclones next year. Ryan Clanton, who we thought would be the OC, which I came to learn that he was an OC at UNI, but didn't call plays. He basically just got assigned that position to get a pay raise. So I should have done more research before I put my eggs in the Clanton basket. But he will continue to be offensive line coach, and he's going to be the run game coordinator. And then Noah Pauley, who is our receiver coach, he'll be the passing game coordinator. And then Jake Waters just got announced as running backs coach. Skirt, you're going to be the quarterback coach, which I like.
Left.
I like. I've always been in the camp that if you were a quarterback in college, you're more naturally to coach quarterbacks. Like I was a kicker in college. I'm not going to coach tight ends.
You could. You could.
Just run your feet.
Just get your hands in.
Yeah, soft hands. Got to have soft hands. So I've always been, and that's why I love the move from Shieldhouse, which I feel like quarterback's a little bit different because you have to know, what the running back's doing, what everyone
you have to know
is doing.
When you also have to know what the defense is doing. You got to know 22 positions when you're the quarterback.
So I feel like a quarterback is maybe a little more versatile in that they could coach receivers or running backs like Shieldhouse did. But then also when he coached quarterbacks, I feel like that was Rocco had a great year. I think a lot of it was due to, I'm not taking away, anything that the previous quarterback coaches did or didn't do, but I feel like Shieldhouse was a dynamic athlete at Illinois when he played. And then coming to Iowa State, coaching the quarterbacks, I think he was able just to naturally give, Rocco and JJ and the other guys in the quarterback room just some insight and some things to think about that, maybe if you were a receiver trying to coach quarterbacks, you may not know.
Yeah, and this says nothing about Kyle Kempt one way or the other.
No,
and we don't know.
I think he's still super involved.
Yeah, I think he's still going to be super involved. He just doesn't. I think he doesn't have as much of a diversity of experience as Waters does. And I also think you compare to the new guy. So let's get to there's one other staff thing that we haven't necessarily said. So there's going to be Noah Paul is going to be the pass game coordinator. Ryan Clanton is going to be the run game coordinator. Taylor Mauser is going to be the offensive coordinator. We'll unpack all of this, but there's one more move that happened.
Yep. And then obviously Jake Waters, quarterback. If you said that. Tyler Roll. So he was at North Dakota State.
And he played what position, everybody?
Running back, fullback.
Goddamn right.
This dude's neck.
Goddamn right.
This dude's neck was thicker than his ears in his like pictures when he played.
He seems like a neck roll guy. Was he a neck roll guy?
I don't know, but he ran for like 260
neck roll
yards against Minnesota before NDSU became Division I. He was, Aiden's
efforting to see if this is neck roll cowboy collar guy.
So he no longer has a thick neck like that, but dude, his playing day pictures were impressive.
Well, you got to have, legit when you were, and so I was
Taylor Mansfield-esque.
That's a bold. So do you know Taylor Mansfield is a military surgeon? No.
Whoa.
Yeah, he went to medical school at Bethesda,
and
then he became a military surgeon. He's the smartest. He is the smartest person that I played with, other than Jared Weaver.
His traps had traps.
He was also a damn good wrestler. Also, he won every Nordic Days competition up there in Decorah because he was a Decorah guy. Where it's like throw a rock for as long as you can and like pick up this barrel and throw it over a wall. He won those like every single year.
Oh sure,
because he's Kronk, me strong, and then just happened to be brilliant as well. Anyway, so Roll is now the running backs coach. He was the offensive coordinator at North Dakota State, which is where he played. He then became, for a hot couple months.
So he got hired this year. So January of this year, Tennessee State poached him. So Tennessee State took him from North Dakota State to be the offensive coordinator at Tennessee State. Tennessee State's head coach is Eddie George. So Hall of Fame NFL running back Eddie George.
No, and also huge human. Absolutely enormous human being. Like, I'm going to put a pause in that story just because I have an Eddie George story.
Right.
So there's only two people that I've ever fanboyed in my entire life. One is John Jones, and two is Eddie George. And Eddie George, when we were down, it's Big 12 Media Days, my senior year, he was covering football before. At that point, he was covering football for Fox. And I loved Eddie George growing up. He was exactly what I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to play receiver because of Ed McCaffrey, because I thought I was smaller than I was and faster than I was. Turns out that I better fit to be an Eddie George guy. Sure. But I loved watching Eddie George because he just would truck people. Like, I'm bigger than you. He was Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry. If you're too young to remember having watched Eddie George, unbelievable power. So Eddie George is walking through the hallway, and I'm like, this is the only chance I'm going to have to introduce myself to Eddie George. So I went up and like shook my hand, bear paws, absolute bear paws.
Checked him into the lockers.
Really nice guy. But I went up and was like, hey, Mr. George. Like,
you said Mr. George?
I didn't have anything after that. Like, I didn't have any plan, because it was like, he's walking across the hallway. I'm sitting there like in between media segments. You go do an interview with whatever. And I walk up there and was like, yeah, Mr. George, I'm a huge fan. And like nothing in my brain after that. Absolutely nothing. And then I was like, I play running back too.
No.
And that's it. And that's it. He's like, that's cool. And it was like, Iowa State. I was like, yep. I don't remember what happened after that. Kind of blacked out and then left. And I realized like instantly in that moment, realizing like, I'm a moron. I'm an absolute moron. But I got to shake Eddie George's hand. So
Sweet.
that was the only one of the few times that I've like actually fanboyed in my life. Most of the time, other than that, if there is a famous person that you meet, you're like, oh, that's just a person. Like you can kind of get used to it. So that's anytime I think of Eddie George or see Eddie George on either TV or whatever, I just think of being an idiot 21-year-old with no idea what I was doing.
Football too. I play running back football too. Do you play football? I like your hair. Have you guys ever seen the Beavis and Butthead movie?
Not
like
the movie,
old one.
Not the movie, but I've seen the shows. Yeah.
Have you seen it, Grant? Oh, never mind. There's a part where Butthead is trying to talk to a girl. I see you have braces. I also have braces.
That was Jeff. That was Jeff. Okay, back to my story. Back to my story, though. If Eddie George handpicks Tyler Roll to be his offensive coordinator, that tells me that he's a damn good coach. And if you look at what North Dakota State did, it's very much what I think Matt Campbell wants to do, which is pound the rock.
2 fullbacks, 3 tight ends, screw you style football. I think the way there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you want to change the roster to match what the best personnel that you have. But no matter what personnel North Dakota State had, because they had Trey Lance, like dynamic running quarterback, they had an offense that was more shotgun, giving a lot more mobility to the quarterback, but they still dominated time of possession. So it's the style of football that they're wanting to play. So Roll gets hired as the running backs coach.
So technically he accepted the position at Tennessee State, but didn't call a single play from him. He was there for 2 months and then was like, just kidding. I'm gonna go to Iowa State and play in the Big 12.
A bunch more money.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
So I'm sure he will have quite the, obviously he's a running backs coach. I'm sure him and Clanton will probably be,
as a running backs coach and an offensive line coach should be.
Yeah, because last year at North Dakota State, North Dakota State ran for 3,800 yards and passed for just shy of 3,000 yards. So
not bad, Bob.
So they ran for about 1,000 yards more than they passed, which I think is what Campbell kind of wants to.
And you
do.
kind of have the personnel to do that. Like
that's what I was going to say.
You have a lot of wide receivers and you have a lot of weapons, but like you have to be a run first offense in the way that Iowa State wants to play. For what my guess is, so let's unpack all that now. So Jake Waters named the running backs coach, then moved from running backs to quarterbacks coach. Then
do you think he leaves that on his resume? I was a running backs coach for a week.
It's not even a week. It was like 3 days.
Yeah. Technically, I was a running backs coach.
It's another line on his LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So Waters gets hired as a running backs coach, gets moved over to be a quarterbacks coach. They hire Roll to be the running backs coach. They promote Mauser to be offensive coordinator. They promote Clanton to be the run game coordinator. They promote Noah Pauley, the wide receivers coach, to be the pass game coordinator. That's a lot of titles, man. So let's unpack for the average fan and the above average fans, because you're all above average fans. So what's like, for my money, what's going to happen? Of the distribution of work is my guess is that Mauser is going to be the play caller on Saturdays, and those 3 are going to work together to say.
And when you say those 3,
meaning Mauser, Pauley, and Clanton. Those 3, the ones that have the offensive coordinators of offense in there, run game, pass game, offense. Those 3 are going to work together to create the game plan that the coordinator likes the best. And last year when it was Shieldhouse came up with and said, obviously using input from everyone else, but if there's an executive decision to be made, I would imagine Mauser has that capacity. But it's he said, okay, we want to run outside zone here. We want to make sure that we run, we get tight end to the boundary, and we want to make sure that we get Bramer on one-on-one on their safety. How do we formation that? And he's the one that's coming up with the game plan, who then communicates it to all the position coaches. Here's what I want to happen during the week. And there's a give and take through there. So there's, the offensive line coach is going to say, hey, we really think that Tyler Miller is going to have a good day against this defensive end, and, input that way. But he's going to be the one coming up with it last year. This year, those 3 are going to probably be working together more collaboratively to come up with something that they all like. And then from there, as the offensive coordinator, he's probably just going to be responsible for calling plays And like the run game segment of the inside drill, where it's just running on running, where we're practicing all of our run games or against the scout look, Clanton's going to be in charge of that and making sure that the running game is really, really sharp. That was the coordinator's job last year of making the offensive coordinator, Shieldhouse's, where you make sure that the run game itself is really sharp. And then in like 7-on-7 or your skeleton or you're against scout or whatever, and you're trying to make sure that the pass game is really sharp. That's going to be Paulie's job now to make sure that the passing game is really sharp. And then they relay that information back to Mauser, who's also going to be involved in both because tight ends have to run block. They also have to catch passes. So they are naturally involved in both of those things. So Mauser is already kind of sandwiched in the middle of the running game and the passing game as a tight end. So those guys will then feed up to him. Here are the things that we like. And they're probably going to like by committee put together the script of what the plays are going to be. And then on game day, Mauser's probably going to be the one that has the last call on what the plays are actually going to be. The one who goes through and says, it's 2nd and 7. I got 32 seconds after the play clock, ball gets reset. I got 32 seconds to make a call. You're not going to have Mauser going, Ryan, I need a run play. What do you got? Run green pony. Okay. So it's not going to be that. Or like Mauser's going to be probably the one calling the plays. But on the sideline, there's probably going to be an interaction of saying, hey, run game, we need to get the ball going. It looks like, hey, when we run to the left side, it's being successful. What do we have that gets better to the left side? Clanton goes through his play sheet, recommends things to come back up there. My guess is it's sort of a collaborative thing, and Mauser, I would assume, is going to be the one calling the plays as the offensive coordinator. One more step to this, I would guess all of this is a temporary solution before Roll becomes the OC in the future.
And what makes you say that?
We talked last week about making sure that the coordinator speaks the language that the kids speak because of all the subtext that goes into it. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time into it. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, pause this, go back and listen to last week's and you'll catch back up on it. And because of that language barrier, he gets hired end of February. Spring ball starts like already. Like it's probably somewhat going right now.
Practice itself starts in 2-3 weeks.
Right. So spring ball's really quick. If you're going to be named the OC and you have all of these existing players, Iowa State has what? Of offensive starters, they have everybody back?
Everyone.
So you have all 11 starters back. You're going to change the language on all 11 starters? No. So my guess is that this is a year to learn the nomenclature, the preferences, the how everything's called, what everything means, think in the way that this offense thinks. And then you can make the determination, do we want to bring that guy up and return everybody to their positions with, some pay bumps or whatever? I don't know how you smooth that out. Or maybe Mauser stays as the OC and, but I would imagine, to me, it feels like in the future, because if this was, if you're returning 2 guys from last year to this year, you might just say, all right, Roll, you're the OC, move on. But I don't think that you want to do that with returning 100% of your starters. But his track record of being the OC at North Dakota State, running the exact style that Campbell wants to run, maybe Mauser and this group does. If they score 38 a game, you keep it. But if it's good but could be better, then I would just you might centralize that more, and Mauser retains the associate head coach title, and then Roll becomes the offensive coordinator. Clanton still and Paulie still receive the same level of pay that they had gotten before with some input, but it's just a different shakeup of what's going on. That's my guess of what's happening. Again, no insider information, and we were wrong about Clanton thinking that Clanton was going to be the OC, but we were right about the internal promotion.
Keeping it in-house, yeah. And to me, if that does happen, which I think it's a smart move, because I think Roll is, I love this move. The more and more I read about him, the guy's, he's just a winner. I mean, North Dakota State obviously won a bunch of national championships. He was an All-American when he was at North Dakota State. That tells me if Mauser is, because I know nothing inside. I think this is going to be like a really collaborative year.
Yeah.
Like you kind of talk about, where Mauser's going to have the final say, but I think it's going to be like a really like a team effort of, which I think it always has been, but I think even more so this year. And if that does happen, where Mauser is the OC this year, and then next year he takes a step back and Roll comes in and becomes OC, that tells me that we've got a very selfless, cohesive staff that no one really cares about who's getting the spotlight. Like just win. And so, which I would love to see that. But I think this Roll hire is, I think it's a great hire.
I'm excited to see what becomes of it. And I think part of the reason why you don't just name Mauser offensive coordinator, go, is he's such a damn good recruiter.
Yeah.
And so, a guy like Shieldhouse was kind of able to do both and worked into being able to do both. But that was sort of over the course of a few years where that gets, the intention is likely that he's going to be the offensive coordinator at some point. Like we knew that was kind of coming. Just when was the question. Well, Mauser has gone like relatively quickly up the chain, but he's also primarily like really involved in recruiting. And so you can't just say like, all right, now you're going to be the offense coordinator, which all of that game planning, all that preparation, all that spring ball stuff, all that making sure you get everything. Now you're going to also be doing all the recruiting that you were doing before. So I think that's probably why they didn't just say you're the OC.
You know what I think is interesting? That
quantum physics?
No, potentially. Mauser was a D lineman in college. Yeah, he was a D lineman at Adams State. He was like 6'1", 235 when he played. It's interesting to see a defensive guy become an offensive coordinator. And that's kind of what I meant, that like Shieldhouse was like a natural fit as a quarterback. And you just kind of see the field and could read the defense naturally. So I'll be really, really interested, really curious to see how this works out. I'm not like, I mean, obviously he's been the tight end coach for 9 years, so he's not like still in defensive lineman mindset. But for me, that's where my mind goes. It's a very natural, if you were a quarterback or offensive guy to become an offensive coordinator, it's a very natural transition, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, yeah, he's also been, like I said, been tight end coach for 9 years, been around the staff for longer than that. So this is nothing new or foreign to him.
And this could also not work, like it's not saying that we're not exclusively being like, you know what, Iowa State not going to miss a step without Shieldhouse. It might happen. Like there's going to be some lumps to this, and you kind of count on the fact that there is some selflessness between the guys that you work together. Because if there's a rub where let's say it is the case where Mauser's the one calling plays, that sort of has like the final say on that, and Clanton recommends something or Pauly recommends something, and Mauser continually just keeps just shitting on that idea and saying that it's not right.
Mark Mangino and Paul Rhodes.
Yeah. That was just there was no downside to that. It was just all upside. But anyway, like there might be some friction in there. Like, and so there's going to be some working out that has to happen. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this works. I would expect that it does work, because the track record of the Campbell staff is that the coaching staff gets along. Like even in the quote down years, which 2022 not fun, but still decent yards production. Ended up getting obviously Manning's not there anymore, but that's sort of like a blip year, you think, based on like the rest of all the track record of how the offense is going. So you kind of feel like it's not necessarily plug and play, but you would trust Campbell's decisions to be able to turn out. So I feel like there is an upside to this, because you have 3 really talented guys that are going to be part of it with 2 young coaches. I mean, the average age of that staff is like 13. And
it's a little young, but yeah.
I mean,
probably 34 or 5.
It's probably close. I mean, because Waters is my age, I think. I think he's in the same class that I am.
Roll is probably
Waters might be
37.
a couple years younger. Yeah, so
he's younger.
I think Waters is a couple years younger than me. He's probably 31, maybe 30, 31. Anyway,
Pauly and Clanton, I think, are our age or a little bit younger though. Dion obviously played with him.
Waters is 31.
Yep, Waters 31. I would say Clanton's probably about the same age, like mid 30s, maybe upper 30s.
Aiden, you had it.
Yeah, you had your mic on.
I didn't actually. Trying to see. He graduated in 2012, I think.
Clanton did? So he's 3 years younger.
I can't find.
He's from college. That's 1 year older than I am. So he'd be 34. So I mean, either way, like it's a young staff, and so
which I like. I like a young, energetic staff.
And you can't really be super selfish when you're young, because you recognize that you don't have all the answers. Versus if you're trying to tell John Haycock what to do, he would have a right to tell you, son, I've coached defense more than you've been alive.
Yeah,
so
buzz off.
Get out of here. So like it's everybody being young, it feels like that's possible.
So sorry, keep going.
No, that was the end of a thought.
So we the staff is complete, and so I know what all the fans are thinking. Everyone in Cyclone Nation, they're thinking, who's the special teams coordinator?
Who is the special teams coordinator, Grant?
Well, so that one hasn't been named, but Lang's was last year. Lang's hit the road, Jack. He gone. So what I think is going to happen is that Hank Poteet, I think he had a big play in it in special teams last year. I think Hank is going to be special teams guy, whether he gets that title or not. I think he'll be the one that carries the load, because Hank he was special at as a punt returner in college and in the pros. You didn't? I'm telling you, you didn't know that?
No, I mean, I'm. It's not clicking. It's not ringing a bell. Is
Yeah.
there? Do we still have it? Do we have a coach for operations? Who is going to be coaching operations for the kickers and punters? The snappers, holders, kickers, punters. Who's coaching operations?
I'll ask Dion. I don't know if he wants to. I can probably coach him up quick.
Just get somebody. All right, now you want to throw it between your legs and have it hit the guy that's holding it.
I think Brian Schwartz is going to come back and coach him.
Field goal.
No,
one of the nicest. Brian Schwartz. I love Brian Schwartz.
I think he works for Golden Rule now. So if you need AC or plumbing tune-up,
great guy.
I think there was a special teams like ops type guy that was in the staff, but I don't know if he's still. But I think he was in California, so he's not
like he just comes in as a consultant.
Is that Rob Grand?
I think so.
Executive special teams quality.
But I don't think he was.
Analyst.
I don't think he was actually in Ames. I think he was in California. So it's like
zoom in, like
right. So I don't know how that works. So I don't know.
Like a little robot, like a little just like a fake. You put an iPad on a RC car and just kind of like roll him around. Just hey, I need to get better. Can someone pick me up and put me in a better angle? I need to be able to see the plant leg.
Yeah. So I don't know who's going to be the special teams like operations type guy, but I think Hank Poteet will be kind of the
coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay.
With or without the title, I think that's who it'll be. Yeah. Right now it says Rob Grande is the executive special teams quality control / analyst. But again, I also
think Rory Walling has a lot to do with special teams too.
We need to acknowledge that he's on staff.
So Rory,
the king of East Des Moines.
So we were talking off air about great ice cream spots, and you guys, neither one of you had Granny's. I guarantee the Wallings have had Granny's. I actually think I've seen John Walling in line at Granny's.
I met John Walling at the Wee Willie.
God, what a fun person! Great guy. What a fun person, John Walling is. He's always had. I talked to Rory about this. He's always had a mustache for as long as Rory's been alive. He's never seen his dad without a mustache.
That's great.
But I think Rory also has a lot to do with special teams, which is probably one of the reasons why you can kind of like by committee.
He's listed as part of special teams.
Yeah, so I talked to him at the Weevil thing. Just kind of he is probably going to have a bigger role as far as like setting a roster. Might not necessarily be like calling what punt return you're running, but like who's going to be out there, who's the ones that are going to be in reads. I think Rory's going to have a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, that's good. And I Chase Contreras is gone. I don't know.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I don't know if the combine's this week, so we'll see TJ Tampa. But I don't know.
Is he the only one that's there, TJ?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, really, no one else graduated, so it's not like they're.
Contreras, I think he should. I know he's got a baby on the way, and he's recently engaged. So congratulations to him and his fiance. But I don't know if he's going to try to go to the NFL or not. Like I've said many times, I think he has a leg to the potential to. But there's a freshman on a walk on the staff that the coaches really like. So Gilbert may or may not be the guy next year.
We have all summer to talk about potential kickers and who's going to be the starter at that barn burner position.
No, we need to start right now.
We need to start
a week by week thing.
This is who's got it on February 26th. Who's going to be the starter come September?
No, I've heard that. I think it's Kyle Conradry is the coaches like him.
Cool.
Number 97.
Cool.
So keep your eye on that.
Any kicker with a 90s number is great.
Why do kickers wear 90s?
Because usually you get tossed just whatever number's left over. For real. My sophomore, I played on varsity as a sophomore, and literally I was the youngest guy in line. I went seniority first. You walked in, you picked whatever jersey you wanted. I was the last one in line because I was the youngest one. I was the only sophomore on the team. Number 4 was the only number that was left. It was like a
number 4?
4X. Yeah.
That's a cool number.
So I was number 4 in high school. Then in college, I was 21. My mom passed away on February 1st, so 2-1. So I want to be 21.
Okay.
And there was a senior who had number 21.
Who?
He was a cornerback. I can't remember. He switched his number to 24, I want to say. And he was kind of upset, but Chiswick was like, "Hey, you don't play." Yeah. Mahoney's taking your number.
Cool.
So that's why I had 21, and there you have it.
Yeah. Neat.
So I did not have, and Geyer, he got to select 25. I think that's what he was in high school. But now the coaches are just like, whatever, kicker.
Yeah. My number was 32 at Iowa State because I was 82 in high school as a running back, which I started. The reason why I started with 82. So this is some people may have heard the story. I don't even think I've said this one too much. So I mentioned earlier in the show, I really loved I loved Ed McCaffrey growing up. Like he was the toughest dude to play. I mean, just whatever. So I wanted to be 87, but there was already an 87. And so the nearest number to 87 that wasn't already taken was 82. And I actually started as a sophomore at X receiver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was an X receiver. And I was like, all right, 82, Ed McCaffrey, here we go. And then I was maybe like 5'10 or 5'11, like a $175 as a 16-year-old kid playing on varsity. It's not kind of knowing what I was doing, kind of not, but still like a $175 is a pretty big high school kid, especially as a 16-year-old.
I went into college at 142 pounds. So
Yeah, I don't have you ever touched 175?
Stop, dude. I'm 180 right now.
Oh, sure.
I was 185 when I played.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So anyway, the first 3 games of my sophomore year, we had 2 guys named Seth Negrete and Kyle Johnson. One of them sprained an ankle, and Seth Negrete, I believe this was the story, as best I can recall. The Rhythmettes was the dance team for Iowa State, and during homecoming, the senior boys would come up with a dance, and they would be the Rhythm Men. Mm. Well, part of that choreographed dance when he was a senior, $185, Grant Mahoney. No way. No way.
I'm deceptively.
Anyway, so the Rhythm Men dance, and one of the seniors was supposed to, like, Negrete was supposed to, I as best I can recall, put his foot on like the bigger guy's thigh, and he was gonna, with his hands, and was gonna throw him into a backflip. And they were practicing this for homecoming week, and the guy throwing him over rotated the Negrete, and so he landed on the ground and got a concussion.
Oh,
so you have one guy with a sprained ankle, you have one guy who's got a concussion. He missed like several weeks, and they're like, "Hey, Woody, you're big enough to play running back. Come try it." I was like, "Okay." And then I think my first game, it was against Ames. I had like 12 carries for like 68 yards or something like that, and they were like, "You can stay." So then I stayed at running back the rest of the year, still numbered 82, because you're not going to switch numbers mid-year. And by the time the next year rolled around, I was like, it's kind of a cool number. I'm going to keep 82. End up successful enough to get All-State, and I'm not going to change it after an All-State year. So like you go in as number 82 again, and people are like, why is this? What, you're in the backfield? Why are you number 82? It doesn't make any sense. So it just stayed there because I started running back, and the only reason that started wide receiver, the only reason I ended up playing running back was because a Rhythm Men dance guy, or in the Rhythm Men dance, guy got over rotated and got a concussion, opening up the space.
You stabbed the starter in the leg.
So I stabbed the starter in the leg.
When did you ever carry the ball with just one hand, or was it always?
No, I did. So there was
with your head down.
Yeah, no, I mean, you run faster with one hand.
With your left hand? Get the brainwaves going?
Yeah. JJ McCarthy's brushing the alpha brainwaves.
I've been doing that. I've been doing that.
Do you feel like your alpha brainwaves are more stimulated?
Dude, I told you, I think my if I have any alpha brainwaves, it's like Gray's Lake, if you were to toss a pebble into it, like the kind of waves that those would create. Very small and
very tiny, just
yeah, like
ripples.
They're there. But like
alpha ripples.
This weekend I tried doing more stuff left-handed, brush with my left hand. I was doing manly shit, installed like a shelving system into one of our closets, used the drill left-handed. Took probably a lot longer than it needed to.
Totally crooked. Nothing's straight. Like,
no, it's
the
all
screw
straight.
the screw is just in the drywall. It's not even anchored to anything. It's not any stud.
If you really want to try and test your brainwaves, wipe your butt with your left hand.
Just make sure you're taking a shower pretty quickly afterwards.
I broke my hand, and I broke both wrists in high school multiple times, but when my hand was broken, my right hand was broken. It's tough to wipe. So yeah, if you try left-handed, try doing it sometime.
I mean, I'll pass, but it's not a skill that I feel like I need to develop. I mean,
you never know. You could lose your right hand in a snowmobile.
Anyway, to finish the number story, 38. If you cut an 8.5, it's a 3. And so Ryan McKim was the one that like selected the number, and he was like, "Hey, 32, just cut an 8.5. It's a 3." And I was like, "Okay, that's it. That's the story."
There you go. That's great.
So yeah, 82, kept 82, and cut an 8.5, and that's 3.
You guys want to feel old real quick?
Sure.
I used to wear the number 19.
Okay.
Because Josh Lund's my favorite football player growing up.
Still, he's my favorite football player.
That's fair.
He's also handsome.
Then I switched to number 1
Definitely
in high school.
Handsome.
Because 19 isn't really a basketball number, so I had to find something new.
Then you switched to number 1
because 19 not a basketball number?
Because Jarvis West.
You can't do the hands.
Oh, you can't
for
go
like fouls and stuff.
9.
Yeah.
Oh,
they didn't like that.
Got it. Oh, the referees didn't like it because they can't signal to the bench who's the one that's got the foul.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
That's malarkey.
Well,
yeah.
That's dumb. That's
but
Mahoney.
If I was 1, then I could do across everything. So makes sense.
Okay. Interesting. Got a new segment I just want to try. So we're going to, just for the sake of having stuff in the can, because I feel like that what the listeners want is our opinion on really important matters. So the segment we're going to do, overrated, underrated. And I'm the only one that brought one.
I've got one now.
Okay, great. Are you talking about wiping with your right hand?
Yes.
Is that going to be the overrated?
That's underrated.
Underrated is wiping with your offhand.
No, underrated,
Underrated
is
is
wiping with your strong hand.
because it's really important.
Try it.
Okay, what's the overrated part of that then? Like, what's the inverse of that? Wiping with your offhand? Overrated. Don't want it. Don't want it.
I didn't know I needed to bring an overrated.
So overrated. This is just from recent personal experience.
Wiping
I've got
in and of itself is overrated.
never wipe.
That's gonna itch when it dries.
Okay, this is completely. I wasn't gonna. You know, an underrated. Here's the underrated. The double check wipe after, let's say, you're 30 minutes post experience and you're not sure if you got all of it. Going back into the bathroom, double check cleanliness wipe, get rid of it, wash your hands afterwards to make sure you're totally clean, because you don't want to get some unnecessary friction after you get done if the first clean cycle wasn't complete or as efficient as it needs to be. The post check wipe.
I don't experience that, Jeff. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
You guys don't wipe with pine cones?
No.
Oh,
no.
Should I switch from pine cones?
I make sure I get it clean the first time.
Okay.
See, pro strategy, just do it before you shower in the morning.
Just only poop once. You only poop once in a day?
Yeah.
Wow.
You
That's
need
a
to-
strong
you
colon,
need to
buddy.
eat more.
That's a strong colon.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Okay, so the overrated, underrated, those gonna have overrated is
A large
This-
perineum.
underrated.
Ooh.
Is this is a first one is straight parenting. They have these like bassinets that are fancy that like you put a baby in and then you have to like put them in a sleep sack, and it's called a snoo, and you like strap them in. And what it does is I was thinking smush smush from the South Park with Snooki. But anyway, like what it's supposed to do is supposed to like sense when the kid is like starting to fuss, and then it'll start to rock for you. And like
Intuitive.
it
Wow.
seems like it's a pretty good thing. Our daughter absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. Luckily, we didn't buy it because it was a hand-me-down from my brother. But the fancy bassinet, like, you know what she sleeps the best in? Basically a basket. Just, it's the same thing. Just put her in a basket, make sure she doesn't roll out, falls asleep. Great. Underrated, sound machines. If you ever have kids, invest in a really nice sound machine, because when a kid is screaming and they finally go to sleep and you don't have a good sound machine or a good white noise machine on, and you accidentally take a step backwards, and maybe you played football for like 15 years of your life and your knees crack. And your knees cracking wakes your kid up and it startles her, and then she screams for 30 minutes after being asleep. If you've had kids listening to me right now, you can you're wincing because that experience is real. And it was only because our sound machine died.
I'm gonna struggle next. My ankles crack like every step.
Oh God. Crank the sound machine up, man. Just get a white noise machine, crank it up. I can invest in a good sound machine.
We have to have a fan on. I have to have a fan on at night, because like, if it's too quiet, like
You just hear everything.
Any little thing. So
Yeah.
I have a fan going at night.
Yeah, just think of that as a baby, and you don't even understand what the world is, and just someone makes a noise, and maybe it's a joint, and it just snaps.
Yeah.
It's not good. Second, overrated, underrated actually has something to do with basketball. I think overrated is tournament seeding. Asterisk.
Which Big 12 or actual?
Big time. Big NCAA tournament.
Yeah, March Madness.
Overrated, tournament seeding. Underrated, tournament location.
Oh yeah, I like that.
So the argument for this would be like, well, most of the time the number one seeds go. Aren't the number one seeds better anyway? Like,
And they're playing like the weaker competition.
but at the same time, the difference between like a 13 and a 14 isn't much. The difference between an 11 and a 12 isn't much. And it's just which side of the bracket
5
you
to
get
12. I mean, look at that. 5 to 12 almost every year. And then now we're seeing more like 4-13s.
But yeah, there's upsets everywhere.
Yeah.
And so like the difference between a 1 and a 2 is like, I would imagine decent. Like that's probably the first one. But the difference between a 2 and a 3, you're on the same side of the bracket, because the 2 and the 3 are on the same side of the bracket. The 1 and the 4 are on the same side of the bracket. So between the 2 and a 3, like where Iowa State's at right now, I honestly don't think it matters much between a 2 and a 3. What matters is location.
Yeah.
So like if you're in the whole Omaha thing, if there's Omaha, or even if there's nothing in Texas, but like if there is a game in Texas, there's a good, like the DFW Cyclones, there's enough alumni that are down there that you could have a full arena that it feels like sort of like a home game ish. Because where was wasn't it in Chicago? Where was the one that when Tyrese hit the shot to
Milwaukee?
So it's in Milwaukee. That's close. Like you have more or less a home field advantage when it's close. So like if you're a really long ways away and it's a dead environment, or you're playing, let's say it's a 2:15 and you're playing UNC Wilmington and it's in Asheville, North Carolina. All right, you have about a neutral advantage. Every team in the tournament's good. So my overrated is seeding to an extent. Like it matters if you're a 1 or a 4, but you're never going to be between a 1 and a 4. Like the good teams are going to be around a 1 or a 2 and a 3 maybe, and then like bleeds down a little bit. But I think underrated is tournament location. So I would rather be a 3 seed in Omaha than a 2 seed anywhere else.
Yeah, and you know, Williams and Blumen talked about it on their Sunday pod about, would you rather win the Big 12 or be seated in Omaha?
What do you guys think on that one generally? Like before,
if Iowa State had a chance to outright win the conference, I would want that. I don't want to share. I don't want to share with Houston. They can have it, sure. I would rather have the Omaha location, almost guaranteeing Iowa State, you know, assuming they win the first round, probably win the second round, home court advantages to really whoever they're playing.
In the grand scheme of things, it's like 20 years from now, no one's going to remember where they played their first and second round of games. But you're going to remember a Big 12 regular season title, especially over the last, 3-4 years when the Big 12 has been the best conference in college basketball without a question, really. At the same time, I think I'd rather take Omaha just because, I'm looking here at the Iowa State redacted game in 2015 where they were the 3 seed playing in Kentucky, which I believe Kentucky was also there. They were playing in Louisville as well. And so everyone just roots for upsets in March Madness pretty much, regardless of who your roots are, unless it's your team playing, pretty much.
Right.
So when you get a game in Louisville, you have pretty much every Kentucky fan cheering for UAB, and all of a sudden it's a road game.
Right.
If you can get essentially, like you talked about, essentially a home game for March Madness in Omaha, that's huge.
Yeah. To me, it feels like the seeding matters less than where you get it. So would you rather have a Big 12 tournament, or would you rather have a Big 12 championship or Omaha? I would rather have an outright conference championship or a conference, like the actual regular season championship, than Omaha. But I would rather have Omaha than the tournament title. So like, I don't think it's necessarily going to be at like really that much at odds. The only thing that would be difficult, would be weird, is let's say Kansas and Iowa State are both on the 2 line. Like let's say Iowa State wins the Big 12. Iowa State and Houston tie for the Big 12 regular season championship, and then Kansas wins the tournament, the Big 12 tournament. So now you have regular season title, Houston, Iowa State, a conference title, Kansas. Kansas is a 2 seed. Like they're at worst a 2 seed.
Yeah.
And Iowa State, regular season title, Houston's a 1. Iowa State's probably a 2. So Kansas would probably, because they're the higher 2, would probably get the Omaha spot. Iowa State gets knocked out. In that situation, that's not as nice. You know?
Kansas is such a goofy team to me too, because they lost by 29 to Texas Tech.
When they were playing without Harris and McCullough.
But
still.
But it's still the.
But they got spanked.
But then they've got some impressive non-cons.
And they're the only team that drilled Houston. They beat Houston by like 20.
But they've got 3 of the top 4 teams right now. They've got wins over. So
they beat UConn, they beat Tennessee,
and
Houston. They beat Houston.
They haven't played Purdue, which I get Purdue out of there, man. I think
and they can shoot.
I think Purdue's going to bounce quick.
It feels like they have the potential to be an upset if you have a team that either Edey gets in foul trouble, or you have a team that can shoot with them.
You know what I saw though? So they lost last year to St. Peter's, and what St. Peter's did was they went like a 5 guard lineup. So Edey had to come out.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what they did on defense, but on offense he was a non-factor because his guy would pull him out to the arc. And then they would drive around and do whatever, or the guy would be too quick and would just go right past him. So, I think Purdue is
upsettable,
very much so. So Aiden, were you able to find that?
No, I think I can't find just like a bracket.
So I'd ask Aiden if Iowa State was in Omaha, where would the Sweet 16 games be if they won the first 2 rounds?
That also might be determined once they have the team set in place.
Gotcha. I didn't know if that was available or not.
Because it's like the Midwest and the South brackets have the like where Omaha feeds to. Like they're part of the Midwest bracket and part of like the South bracket, I think, is where. So like Kansas and Iowa State could theoretically both. Kansas could be the 2 seed in Omaha. Iowa State could be the 3 seed in Omaha, and they could not be in the same part of the bracket.
Same region.
The same region. They could be in the South and they could be in the Midwest because they don't all necessarily share.
Yeah. What I think is interesting too is that there's a huge Iowa State alumni contingency in Phoenix too. So if Iowa State gets to the Final Four,
oh shit! If Iowa State gets the Final Four, flights from Des Moines to Phoenix are going to be $1,200 because the amount of people that are going to be down there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not jumping the cart in front of the horse.
I feel like I have a baby, and I feel like, all right, Nell, we're getting you on a plane again because we're going down. We're going to a basketball game. We're going to you the baby headphones, keep the sound out. We are going because that is way too good of an event to not potentially be a part of.
Okay, so the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. Based off this, so it's in Boston, Dallas, Detroit, LA. So probably Boston East.
Okay.
Dallas South.
Detroit would be Midwest. So it's probably Detroit.
You're probably looking at Detroit.
Yeah.
So it's probably theoretically would be
Detroit
Omaha, Detroit, or Dallas. I honestly think the Dallas one would be better. I feel like because there's a pretty good contingent of Cyclones down there in Texas. So
did I say contingency? I did.
Contingent, contingency.
I said
like just if the Cyclones make it, we're gonna have a lot of people down there. If they don't, we have no idea what's gonna happen.
I thought I used a big word correctly. Then.
Contingent. I don't know. It feels like that to me feels more important. Like I said, more important than seeds. So that's overrated, underrated. Everybody.
I like it. Maybe we can get a sponsor for that segment. So if anybody from Outside Scoop's listening,
in Ankeny or Granny's Ice Cream, I'm just either one. We're looking for an ice cream sponsor.
No free ads, but my God.
I mean, East Side or Granny's is just the best. The Outside Scoop also the best.
That's like we're in Ankeny. So
that's like what is it? Hard serve? Is that what you call it? Like hard serve or actual scoop ice cream? Outside Scoop, great. Also Creamery in Polk City, great. Soft serve stuff, Granny's. It's just
I just feel like best. Overrated, underrated. You can have like an outside take. Like we're kind of thinking outside the box. So Outside Scoop. That's what I'm trying.
Pandering.
Grant just wants free ice cream.
Yeah, I finished.
He was $1.85 when he graduated per the roster.
That's right.
How many weights did you have in your shoes when you were doing that?
None, man. I'm deceptive.
I was 6'1" in the roster too. I've never been 6'1" in my life.
You wouldn't guess I'm 180 right now.
Do they ask you what your height and weight is?
I don't know where they I don't know where that comes from. I have no idea where that comes from. They're just like,
Jeff,
you look
6-ish. Yeah.
For the roster?
Yeah.
They took our weight every morning.
Well, yeah,
so
but
that
like
makes
the
sense,
weight, the height. Like I don't know where the height comes from. Like they just look like
no. Every year we'd go against the wall and they would.
I never remember doing that except on pro day.
I did because they had to put me in my socks. And I remember at pro day, they were like, "Oh, you're 5'11" and 12/13. I was like, oh, for God's sakes, or whatever it was, 13/14. I was like, give me 6 foot. You gotta be kidding me.
I was 6 foot and 1/8 inch. And that's only because I have this little knob on top of my head right here.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I can like turn my head down and just like pokes up just a little bit.
I should have knocked myself in the head.
I have. Oh yeah, you should have. It's like you just at the very top of your head, just where you're going to reach down for the cereal, and you just like catch yourself on the cabinet just a bit, just so you can kind of like get a little Rudolph horn on top of your head. But yeah, I don't know. I have no idea where 6'1" came from.
I know it's totally apples to oranges, but at my Class A / 8-man high school, they would just ask us what we were.
Were you 6'1"?
I think one year I put like 5'9.5", and then the next year I put 5'8". And someone was like, "You were 5'9" last year." I'm like, "Oh, really? That's crazy."
Look at all the work he's done in the weight room. He's up 20 pounds and down an inch and a half.
I think it was like my junior year. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be a little like give myself an inch," because everyone would like add 5 pounds in an inch. That was the thing.
He graduated 6'4". Wow, that's impressive.
So they would have us. They would always juice up our heights. So in college, I'm pretty sure they said I was like 6'3".
What?
Oh yeah, 6'2", 6'3". I won't be off on my roster. I don't think. I'm trying to find on Max Preps.
I was
6'1". Used to be on there.
I was 6'1". I've never been 6'1" in my life. I'm 6 foot.
Max Preps has me at 6 foot, but on our roster, it said I was like, I think it said I was 6'2".
That's impressive.
That's like, it'd be great if I was 6'2".
That's impressive. And the last thing we just need to go over. Do you want to talk about the West Virginia game at all? It feels like that was just that was of a game that you end up with a win.
I do. We can just talk about it briefly. So I forgot West Virginia. They have dudes. They have
a few.
Well, they
Edwards is good.
They had the number one recruiting transfer class, but then Bobby Huggins got the boot, and so some of those guys left. But Kirk Risa was a really good. He came from Arizona, really good point guard.
Also, extremely unlikable unless he's your guy.
He's unlikable for the sole fact that he's got his first name on the back of his jersey because that's what Steve Kerr, obviously his last name is Kerr, right? And then
is there any other reason than that?
Yeah, so he was at Arizona,
which is where Steve Kerr played.
Yes, so he wanted the 25 Kerr jersey. That's about
that alone, man. Like that alone, like, dude, you look like a squid doing that. Like,
and
your last name is Krisa. Put that in the back of your jersey.
Kreisa. He was German. Right?
Kreisa.
He's not from America. I don't know where he's from, but he's not. He's an overseas kid.
Anyway, and then the Edwards kid, he can ball.
From Syracuse. He
can ball.
He's a dude. And then Roquan Battle came from, I think, Montana, who was like the number one like transfer guy from that level, like non-power 5 guy, I guess. So they had some dudes, but then they were injured. They didn't like this is only like their 7th game playing together. Like Battle had been out for a lot of the time. So like they've got some dudes, but they've got their coaches, like an interim coach. He's not gonna be.
I mean, he was forced into a position because basically they'd already signed that recruiting class more or less, and then this summer is when all hell broke loose. If you're a West Virginia fan,
yeah,
and you know that roster falls apart, and I don't know it's hard. You know, you feel bad for them a little bit, like the players that are there, because like they didn't come to play for anybody other than Bob Huggins, but then you're sort of too late in the process to switch anything. And you know, I'm sure they're monetarily being compensated for their commitment to the university through the whatever collective it is, but like that still kind of sucks.
They got paid well.
Yeah,
I think
it's still like
it does suck.
Good for them, but like it still kind of sucks.
It does suck because they were, you know, like Blumen mentioned in April, like when the team was still intact, they were talking like national title run. Like they had a really good squad. So they had those 3 guys are talented. Iowa State was like an 18-point favorite. It's like, which is way too much. But I just watching the game, it just seemed like Iowa State was, you know,
there's a step slow.
You know, in practice, like you aren't going full speed at all times. You know, it's just kind of like not really going through the motion, but just it's practice.
A little bit. You can call it going through the motions.
It's practice.
Like practice. Okay, can I just say that? Have you ever watched the Allen Iverson 30 for 30?
Practice.
Have you seen the Allen Iverson 30 for 30?
Yeah. Practice.
Man, that is the most
game.
The practice, dude. That is, if I remember the context of that right, he missed a practice because he was going to the funeral of one of his friends who had passed away, and the reporter asked him, "Why were you not at practice?" And the whole point of that rant wasn't practice isn't important. He's saying that like
I missed a practice.
I missed a practice to go to a funeral of one of my friends, and you're criticizing me about missing a practice when I'm trying to mourn human life over here. And so like that, we're talking about practice.
Wasn't a big part of it too was like spend a day in my shoes.
Yeah. And like that, I feel like that is the most misquoted thing. Like the playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can take that one to the bank. But I'm on Team Allen Iverson on that one. The
I'm
practice,
a man.
I think it was during the playoffs too, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
So I think that's why it
was
came up in the first
after
place.
the next practice. The next day's practice.
Trying to find
the Allen Iverson.
It happened in.
I don't remember the exact. I don't remember the details on like the timing. I just remember that he missed it for like a very good reason.
It was May 7th, so it would have been during
early
the playoffs.
Yeah, but anyway, that was.
But it seemed like Iowa State was just kind of it was
playoffs,
like a scrimmage to him. Like they just.
You kidding me?
Thankfully, Iowa State's a more talented team, and we just, you know, they could just show up and just win. But West Virginia made it a game.
Well, they just turned it over a zillion times.
Yeah,
I mean that was some of them were.
And West Virginia typically turns the ball over a lot, and they didn't really turn over as much as I anticipated them to. So they
turned over 23 times.
I thought it was gonna be a lot more than that, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure that was the most that West Virginia turned the ball over all year. By like a good bit too. Like they turned it over a lot. Like they average in the upper teens, I think. But if I remember, like Jess Settles in the broadcast saying like, and they extend their, you know, records 20-second turnover or whatever.
They had a couple dumb, like just throw at the guy's head.
Yeah, just whip it out of bounds for no real good reason. I think to me the takeaway from that one is that there is enough depth on the team to be able to salvage when something's not going.
Don't let Jackson get hot.
Don't let Jackson get hot, man. Dude, Pav came in his first 3 shots.
Bang!
Boom. Just
Shoot
nailed
with
it.
confidence. That's what I love about the squad. They're shooting with confidence. Taman had 2 threes from the same spot on the wing, stepped into it, bang, knocked them both down. I don't care. Trey King he is surprisingly a decent three-point shooter and puts them up, but so often he puts them up like, no, okay. But when he's shooting with confidence, I'm like, I love it.
Especially because he's playing 4. Most of the time he's playing the 4, which allows Milan to play the 3. So Milan's drawing a shorter defender, usually. And then Trey is going to be drawing the bigger defender to draw that guy out, which then Rob Jones is just in a fist fight with their 5.
Point guard Rob Jones.
Point forward.
Right.
And they it's a dynamic roster that you're able to play with. But the thing that comes to mind is this felt a lot like the UAB game, like the redacted game, is that it came out flat, like dead flat the whole way. But granted, you're not playing a tournament team, but guy like Jackson comes off, absolutely just has like powder keg, and Rob Jones goes coast to coast with that turnover, powder keg. Iowa State, their biggest lead was like 14 or 16 or something like that towards the middle of the game. And it sort of kind of closed out a little bit late, but you go from being down, was it 14-2 or something like that early? And then you end up with the 51-50 trailing after the first kind of sloppy 10 minutes. But Jackson comes in, boom. Then you get Rob Jones with that coast to coast, boom. And all of a sudden energy's back because a guy like Jackson has that, the Tyrese McGee microwave, bring him off the bench and go. And he's a little bit of a defensive liability in that he's going to get blown by like Jamal Shed and Sharp. I think when they were playing Houston, as soon as they got Pavletsky, they just like told everybody to get out of the way. We're going 1-on-1. But in situations where he can rotate and he can dive on the ball and get in passing lanes, really good. He's going to be really good by the time he's like, if he stays around for a while.
I think he's only a sophomore.
Yeah. And he's going to be able to develop physically, like once he gets stronger a little bit quicker too, because with his confidence and like the capacity to shoot, like he's going to be a dog. But it feels like this roster has enough character guys who can pull a team out of a slump when that slump is there. And there's enough depth that like, I think Milan didn't have a great game and Keyshawn gets in foul trouble. And okay, what do we do? All right, Jackson comes in or whatever. Like it feels like there's enough depth to do that. The only thing I'm a little bit nervous about is Hassan Ward's shoulder. Make sure that's okay.
That's true.
But other than that, I mean, that was if you have a turd that you just plop on the floor and you can still win you'd be up by double digits for the majority of the final quarter of the game and you get a win. Cool.
That was the team to do against too, and Iowa State was due for a letdown game. They've been playing so hard
and that was after Houston too,
so consistently. Yeah, so that was the perfect spot for a letdown. Sleepwalk through the game, get the W, get out of there, move on to Oklahoma, get the win, which I anticipate Iowa State will be jazzed up for on Wednesday. Revenge game. They've got a chance to. It'll be tough. It'll be tough for them to finish out the regular season undefeated from here. They have a very real chance to.
And there's because the 3 people that are in contention with them, with Houston, Kansas, and Baylor, all 3 of them have way harder roads to go. Houston has to play Kansas at home. They also have to go to UCF like Iowa State does. Baylor has to play both Kansas or Baylor has to host Baylor hosts Kansas, right? Because I think Kansas goes to Baylor and to Houston.
Baylor plays TCU tonight, so we're recording Monday. So they play at TCU, which can be a tough game. TCU can be tough at home, but then they host Kansas, they host Texas, and they go to Texas Tech, which could be a tough game as well.
And so Kansas has to go to Baylor and to Houston.
Yep.
So those are the games that you're sort of competing with. I mean, depending on the health of Kevin McCullough and how the rest of the guys go.
And Kansas hosts Kansas State, which rivalry game.
No, they're gonna beat Kansas State by 100 after losing in the first. You think Bill Self's not gonna beat the brakes off of Jerome Tang in a road game?
They may only have 6 guys.
Dude, I think Bill Self's lost like 18 times in 20 years at Fog Allen.
A couple of Rhode State.
It's true. But the thing that's sort of scary about Kansas, with McCullough having to sit, they are being forced to develop some semblance of a bench. And
it's true.
Justin Timberlake's cousin Nick, dude can play like as a forward.
That's not really his cousin, is it?
No, I don't think it's actually his cousin. Maybe it is.
I know he's a transfer. I saw him in concert. Horrible.
Amazing.
Horrible.
What?
It was because he like his vocal cords were shot. We saw him in Omaha. And he like high pitched, he'd like turn the mic to the crowd and sing. I'm like, no, I came to hear you. And then he would dance. And
hey, a lot of people have flu games. Some people respond differently. Justin Timberlake officially not a dog.
Not a dog.
Not a dog.
I saw Dave Grohl with Foo Fighters. He had laryngitis. Try singing the Foo Fighters songs. You don't have any vocal cords. So it was really cool. Foo Fighters fan here for all the rest of the Foo Fighters foodies. I don't know if there's any. Anyway, Foo Fighters fans. I got to see Taylor Hawkins because Dave his vocal cords needed a break. So Dave went to go play drums, and Taylor Hawkins came out and sang vocals, and they sang a David Bowie song. So I got to see Dave Grohl drum a David Bowie song with Taylor Hawkins singing in the front. That was so cool.
That's pretty
One of the favorite concert experiences I've had. And it was in one of I have with some connections are like fairly rich people. One of them, they weren't going to use their box. They just gave me tickets for it was in a luxury box to watch that. Super cool. Anyway, Kansas with Timberlake actually being able to play when McCullough comes back, and they have as Elmarco Jackson is the backup, kind of their one or two that they can play. So they have, if those two guys can play, they have 7. Now, Dickinson, there's not really anybody that can come in and play with when Hunter Dickinson, if he gets in foul trouble or like rolls an ankle or something. But Kansas, if Dickinson can stay more or less out of foul trouble, they can be with if Timberlake and Jackson can play well, which they are forced to play now. I mean, they beat the brakes off Texas with McCullough being gone. Now, again, at Texas, I don't think they're really trying that hard for Rodney Terry anymore. But like Kansas, if they have that 6 and 7 with Jackson or with Elmarco Jackson and Nick Timberlake, that's a dirty team that you really got to worry about if you're going to run into them in March.
I heard that at coming out of halftime that Texas was doing like reverse between the legs layups, like just dicking around.
They
like,
don't care.
What are we doing here, guys?
They don't care.
No.
So
fun episode. Next week we're gonna have a guest on to talk Tang Gate and to wrap
Is
up.
it 2 G's?
Tang,
Is it a hyphen?
Tang Gate.
Tangit?
Tang.
Just 1 G. It's Tangit.
Tangat.
Tangate?
So we'll have Tim Fitzgerald back on. Great guest. You were not there last time.
I wasn't.
You're gonna love him. He's a great dude. One of the few Kansas State Wildcats that I actually like. So that's all for now. So thank you to all of our loyal listeners who are still listening. And as always, remember, adopt, don't shop.